All right, I think they're live. Welcome, everyone. Happy New Year. Hope you all had a good holiday and are staying safe and healthy. Glad to see you all. This meeting is being live streamed on YouTube on the Palmdale 2045 channel, and it's also being recorded. And for those of you joining us for the first time, I'm Simran Malhotra. I'm a principal with Remy & Associates, and we are leading the general plan update for the city of Palmdale. Before we get started, I'd like to first call the meeting to order. It's 6:33. And then introduce Carlene Saxton, who's the Director of Economic and Community Development for the City of Palmdale. She'd like to make some opening remarks.
Thanks, Simran. Yes, as always, I'm so happy to see all of our wonderful, committed GPAC members. Simran was mentioning before everyone joined that everyone RSVP'd. Your commitment is incredible, and the community is really lucky to have you guys participating and advising in this process. I know it's been a long haul, and these Zoom meetings are, intense, and everybody's on the computer all day. So thank you, GPAC members, and thank you, community, for tuning in. We're excited to kind of go into the next phase of this, and we look forward to a lively discussion. So with that, I'll hand it back to Simran.
Thank you, Carlene. So the focus for today's meeting is going to be an overview of the preferred land use alternative, and I'll get into a little bit more about the agenda in a minute. But before I do that, I wanted to introduce some of the other city staff members who are here today. We have Megan Taggart, who's the planning manager for the city. You all know her well, as well as Ben Fiss, who's a senior planner with the city. And from Remy & Associates, I have Melissa Stark, who makes all of this happen. So shout out to her. Let's do roll call next. Please wave or verbally acknowledge when I call your name. Tony.
Hello.
Juan Blanca.
Present.
Lourdes Everett. Not here yet. Colby Estes.
Here.
Laura Gordon.
Here.
Teresa Hambro.
Hello, everyone.
Matthew Harris.
Present.
Aurora Hernandez.
Here.
Pat Hunt.
Here.
Sherry Kanashiro. Terry Lamping.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Debbie Witkowski-Hines. And Jason Zink.
Present.
Right. Now Melissa will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If you can all mute yourself. And Melissa.
Yeah, thanks everyone. If you wouldn't mind standing, placing your right hand over your heart, and ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. And I just muted everyone. You should be able to unmute yourselves if needed.
Okay. The first item on the agenda is meeting minute approvals from the last meeting, which was held on October 28th. Are there any questions, corrections? Not hearing any. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
And I will,
Thank you, Han.
will second that motion.
Great. Any discussion? No. Melissa, do you want to run the poll for approval?
Yeah, we have an official poll for meeting minutes number 9 approval, which I'm going to launch now. You'll have the option to either accept by clicking yes or by clicking no. Okay, we have 11 responses with yes, so I'm going to close the poll. All right, thank you.
Unanimously approved. Okay. As we go through the presentation, as always, we'll pause at several points to answer any questions you might have, and we also have additional polls for you throughout the presentation. So look forward to your comments and the discussion at that point. We'll also have opportunity after the presentation is complete to provide additional comments. What we'd like to hear from you today is related to the preferred alternative, about the overall global plan that's being presented. And if we have additional comments about particular properties, we suggest that those be discussed with city staff at a later date so we can keep talking about the overall alternative in this format. Those who are watching this on YouTube, there's an opportunity for you to provide comments and ask questions through that forum that's linked on the YouTube channel. Please feel free to provide your input through that as well. Okay, let's get started with the presentation for today, and this is a review of the preferred land use alternative and how we got here. The next couple of sections of the presentation provide some background, including existing land uses and the existing 1993 general plan. This map shows what the distribution of what is on the ground in Palmdale today. You can see in the pink, you have plant 42. There's a lot of yellow, which is all the residential areas that have been developed. The quarries, which are in this southwest corner, and some industrial type uses around plant 42. But most of the city is currently vacant. And although the city has a lot of vacant areas, almost two-thirds of the city is vacant, all properties within the city has a land use designation. And this map, which is the 1993 general plan land use map, shows what those designations are. And as you can see, all the yellow on the screen is single family residential designations. The next largest designation is the industrial, which you can see in this bright pink. And then this kind of maroon color here is the area which has mineral resource extraction type uses. There are also several, or a good portion of the city is covered by various specific plans, and I will get into that a little bit more later in the presentation. This next section is material you have already seen, and so in previous meetings, and I'm going to go through these quickly, but this is just to, again, orient you all to what we have been talking about in the previous set of meetings, and then begin to frame what the preferred land use alternative looks like. Based on what we had heard throughout this process from the community and working with you all, we had prepared and refined vision themes. And these are meant to provide a framework to guide future decision making. And these 10 themes are broad and they address all aspects of life in Palmdale. And these include creating a downtown, diversifying the local economy with more job options, providing additional housing options for residents from all income and ability levels, preserving Palmdale's natural setting and creating a safe city and a healthy city that's welcoming for all. And these vision themes guided the development of the land use alternatives that we had shared with you all and the community over this past summer, and also guide the preferred alternative that we'll be discussing today. Our analysis of the physical and natural constraints also guided the land use framework map, which has elements that were consistent across the alternatives that were previously presented. And this slide shows those three alternatives side by side, and they varied in several ways. And the differences included the distribution and mix of employment uses, density of new housing, the location of medical and education districts, and the amount of regional commercial. We then, over the last summer and early fall, presented this material to the community and also to the Planning Commission and City Council and got their input. In addition, we had focus groups, we had a community workshop, we had a survey and various pop-up events through which we gathered input. And we received over 800 responses and more than 4,000 touch points of folks in the city who actually looked at the materials and provided input. There was general consensus across almost all the various groups we talked with about which alternative was preferred. And there was preference in the direction we got from the Planning Commission and City Council also reflected this. There was preference for alternative 3. And the reason this alternative was preferred was folks like the mix of jobs, the housing choices, flexibility, and how the land use patterns in here meant less need for travel. There were some elements in the other alternatives that were also preferred, and these were brought into the preferred alternative, which I'll share with you shortly. On the land use map, we have refined the land use designations for the various kind of land uses in the city. And these cover a spectrum of the kinds of development we envision in the future. Some of these are already in use in the current general plan, and some are new designations that will allow for different types of development to occur, those that you don't see in the city. And those are shown in the gray, the boxes with the gray, blue-gray background. So this slide, and it's I'm sure fairly small, new, and a little hard to read, but the purpose of the slide is to indicate that there are almost 10 designations, 9 designations for residential uses at a variety of densities. These range from half acre to acre lots all the way up to 10 units to the acre, and these are current designations that are in the general plan today. We introduced 2 additional designations, which were the missing middle density ranges. And these are residential neighborhood 2 and residential neighborhood 3, which cover the missing gap. So 10 to 20 units to the acre and 20 to 30 units to the acre, which aren't currently permitted in the city's general plan or zoning code. And then the last designation, which is in the current general plan, is the highest density between 30 and 50 units to the acre. We also introduced 4 different mixed-use designations, and mixed-use designations are those where you have retail or commercial uses with residential uses, and these can be either in the same building in a vertical format where you would see retail on the ground floor and housing above, or it can be in a horizontal format where there's retail or commercial uses in the front on the property and there's residential uses in the back. And these 4 mixed-use designations are at, again, varying densities, increasing from the lowest to the highest that are permitted. We've used these sparingly across the city and use them strategically at areas where we think a mix of uses is desirable to create the kind of land use pattern and place making we want to see here in Palmdale. This column on the right shows the commercial, office, and industrial designation, and these include neighborhood commercial uses, which are the kind you would see with grocery stores, coffee shops, dry cleaners, etc. in your neighborhood, and then going on all the way to a big box mall. So the AV Mall has the regional commercial designation. We also have a couple of other designations in this category for visitor commercial that would include uses along the freeway and have additional uses such as hotels, etc., and other accommodation type uses within that designation. And then employment flex, which is a job generating or job creating designation where you have R&D, office, light industrial, business park, so more job intensive uses, hence the name employment flex, and then general industrial use as well. Then additionally, we have uses for aerospace industrial, and then the mineral resource extraction is a current designation that's continuing. And then the 2 new designations that we'll talk about a little bit more are the health and wellness designation, and those are tied to the medical type uses we've been discussing. And then the last one is educational flex, which again is tied to the education districts that we've been discussing. There are there's a lot of land within the city that is covered by existing specific plans, and that designation is something that is continuing in the new general plan, and those specific plans control what the uses are allowed and the development standards for those areas. So when we look at the overall map, I'll point out those areas as well. And then finally, we have a series of public type uses, parks, schools, civic uses like City Hall, and then of course open space uses. I'll pause here for any questions you may have, anyone might have.
I do have one question. In regards to the general plan, do we look at if the school districts have future plans for development of new schools, like elementary schools, junior highs, high schools, et cetera, so we can factor that in? Do they have their own general plan?
School districts, Melissa, there's someone who's wanting to join the meeting.
Yeah.
Sorry, Matt. Yes, school districts have their own facilities plans, but they usually base their future growth and facilities on what they expect the projected population increase is in the city. So as we develop the preferred land use plan, we will be sharing this information with the school district, which will help them identify which neighborhoods or which areas do they expect to see population growth and where they might need to site additional facilities.
Okay, thank
And
you.
then just a reminder too.
I can add a little bit to that conversation about the school districts. Is a lot of times they don't even know where they're going to be purchasing land because they don't know where the growth is going to be. So, for example, all the years I've worked for Muroc and for Westside, for close to 30 years. And I only know of one plot of land that they had and that they had planned on using that, from way back when. So, and they don't want it to get out, just like the city where they're interested in either, because then the price goes up. So there's really not a whole lot of pre-planning on where the schools are going to go in. I mean, they know where they're going to need them eventually, but the land isn't always available. And then it has to do with dealing with developers sometimes and having them set aside plots and things like that. And that's usually more how it goes, is where when a development is going in, there's a plot that the school district is allowed to buy to put a school on that site. Having been on a school board, I figured I'd answer that question.
Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you, Debbie.
I was just going to note too that since the start of the onset of the project, we've been in communication with different stakeholders from Palmdale schools, and we'll continue that throughout the process too, to make sure that they're aware of our plans and we're aware of their plans.
And Westside School District as well?
All the school districts, yes.
Westside School District, they also have schools
Yes.
in Palmdale.
Westside, like I am totally with Pat, because Westside gets left out a lot of times.
Yes. When I was on the planning commission, the superintendent came in and with a group of homeowners to object to the zone change on the west side. And we asked him, did he look at the general plan before they located the school there? And he looked around and he said, what general plan? So we need to educate the school people too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point, Pat. And as Melissa said, we've at this outset of the project, and even during the alternative phase, we met with all the school districts who have facilities in Palmdale. And the plan is to meet with them again during this phase to get their input.
Yeah, I think like with Pat, I just, you want to just make sure that Westside's included. Because when people think Palmdale, they think Palmdale does all of Palmdale. Palmdale School District doesn't do all of Palmdale.
That's right.
If I could just make one other note for folks who are watching on YouTube, if you'd like to download a copy of tonight's presentation to view anything larger or to follow along, you can find that on the project website, which is linked in the YouTube description. If you go to activities and GPAC, under tonight's meeting, there's a presentation link and an agenda, and that's where you can find those materials.
Other questions? Any questions about the land use designations? We can always come back to those if you have additional questions. Okay, now let's take a little bit of a deeper dive on the land use alternative. Quick reminder, this is the land use framework, and it was focused on the areas that are expected to change over the next 25 years. This map shows the actual designations for those change areas, and I'll point out some of the highlights of this map, starting with the downtown, the location of the downtown around the high-speed rail station and the transit station. And this area, the city has just in December adopted the transit area specific plan that will address development within this area. It's supposed to be the most intense of development within the city to take advantage of the high-speed rail facilities, as well as the other multimodal facilities that are anticipated to be located within this area. There are two health and wellness districts, one around the Palmdale Regional Medical Center and the second around the Kaiser facility on Avenue S and 35th Street. And there are two education districts along on Palmdale Boulevard, one around the Antelope Valley College campus at 25th, and the second near and around the Aerospace Academy on 35th. We have the regional commercial uses around the Antelope Valley Mall, and a mix of employment uses around Plant 42. Palmdale Boulevard is anticipated to be a mixed-use corridor, and there are a mix of residential uses on both sides of Palmdale Boulevard between Avenue Q and R. And there are village centers across the city and retail nodes across the city that address the needs of the surrounding neighborhoods. When we look at the overall map with all the rest of the city filled in, this shows all the uses. This map shows all the change areas as well as the areas that are not changing. So this fills in all the yellow, as you can see, of the existing single-family neighborhoods, the specific plans which are located in this kind of light teal color. And as I mentioned, the transit area specific plan right in the heart of where downtown would be. There's a few other things to note. We have not shown actual locations for parks because we don't want to locate those on specific parcels which are owned by private individuals. We will, in the future, be preparing a map which shows the recommended location, but that would just be shown in a general area, but not on a specific property. So the intent is to ensure that there is park space in the appropriate locations. It's just that we wouldn't designate those unless those properties are already owned by the city on this map. The second item to note is that the mineral mining and resource extraction area, which is shown in this dark gray here, has been reduced from what was demarcated in the 1993 map. It is an open question if there should be further reductions to this area, but a good portion of this area has current mining activity ongoing. So that's something we'd like to get your feedback on. And then finally, it's a little hard to see on this map, but there are all these circles which show where the village centers should be located, and especially in areas where these areas are where these village centers are surrounded by the specific plan, so you can't really see that there is residential uses around it. But the locations of these centers were based on the surrounding uses and to ensure that they serve the purpose they're intended for in these particular locations. This map just again
about the circles.
Yes.
So every single one of those circles is a city center. The reason I'm asking
is a village.
It just seems that.
Sorry, Debbie.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I couldn't hear you. I was just asking you to repeat your question.
Yeah, the little circles that you're talking about as being the city centers. I'm seeing quite a few of them west side and then a couple on the east side. Those are all projected city centers, all of those?
Those are all village centers, which I'll later on in the presentation, we have an additional section describing what those are and what those might look like. But very briefly, these are areas situated, these are neighborhood commercial centers, which could also have additional mixed housing, mixed use development to create little hubs so that the residents in the surrounding neighborhoods have a place to go to that they can walk to or bike to for their daily needs. So place like this would have retail, grocery stores, dry cleaners, coffee shops, those kind of neighborhood serving retail. And they could also have housing either as mixed use above the retail or in alongside it in like the walk-ups or townhomes, or small apartments or courtyard homes.
And then just to add really quick, Debbie, just to add some clarification really quick. So these are consistent with what was originally shown during the alternatives, the 3 that we had talked about. And also it's very hard to see on this screen, but there's actually, I think 6 or so on the east side. And there's like 4 or so on the west side, but just to keep in mind, and I know I don't really have to say this because you all here are representing the city, but this is a city general plan. So while I understand there's a freeway that goes through the middle of it, what's so wonderful is we have housing across the whole city. So we really want to make sure that we're talking about the city as a whole. But I know it's so hard to see those little village centers. A lot of them are surrounded by red, so it is a little deceptive. The link that we send out to the GPAC, you guys can zoom in and zoom out, as well as everyone listening on YouTube. That's available on the survey website as well. You can do that interactive, zoom in, zoom out as well.
It's just the ones on the west side kind of confused me because they're in the mountains, it looks like, behind the aqueduct. So it was just kind of.
If you're referring to something like this here, Debbie, the color here is showing the specific plan color, and the same thing. And in fact, when we get to further down the presentation, we'll talk about this. It's hard to understand why there's a circle in the middle of nowhere, right? Seemingly it's middle of nowhere. But when we look at what's actually there, especially with some of those which are in an existing, where there's already residential around it, it's easier to understand why those locations were identified as village centers.
Okay, because I think was a projected future specific plan. Right now, there's absolutely nothing out there.
It's an existing specific plan, Debbie.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, since it's an existing specific plan, and the specific plan may not have exact locations for where some of these services should be. The general plan is essentially saying that when this specific plan gets implemented, they should provide these kind of village centers within their area, and that's going to be a negotiation that would happen between the developer and city staff at that point. But the general plan establishes the direction for those.
Okay, thank you. That really helps. I appreciate it.
Of course. Other questions? Okay, we can again come back to this. This graphic, again, not super easy to read, shows the area allocated to the various land use designations within the city, and we broke it up into these broad categories: residential, mixed use, commercial, and industrial, and special. And special includes specific plans and, of course, public. And the difference between the current general plan and the preferred land use alternative is not significant when you just look at numbers. But what is different is one, we have introduced several mixed use designations, and that has different implications and results in our metrics, which I'll share shortly. Also, we have modified the intensity of some of these land uses, which also affects the metrics. And these are the same metrics that we had used to evaluate the alternatives previously, and we had measured them against the benchmark of the 1993 general plan, as does this graphic. So there is an increase in both the number of housings and jobs in the preferred land use alternative than in the 1993 general plan. The new land use alternative or the preferred land use alternative reduces vehicle miles traveled as it encourages residents to walk and bike more compared to the land use patterns today. As a result, it also reduces the annual household cost for transportation, energy, and water, and there's an increase in the travel mode share, which is how many folks walk or bike versus use their cars to get around. And with that, I'll pause again for any questions, and then we have a poll for you. Yes, Debbie? Questions, and we can go back to any of the slides. You're all quite quiet today. Okay, Melissa, do we have any questions on YouTube? Or comments?
Double check. If you have anything through Mentimeter. For folks who are watching, just a reminder, there's a link to a comment form called Mentimeter in the YouTube description, and you'll have access to all of the poll questions we'll be asking our GPAC members tonight, as well as some open-ended opportunities to provide comments for the end of the meeting or questions on the presentation. As of right now, we don't have any feedback from folks online.
I do have one question.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you go back to the map with everything laid out, there is for mineral resource extraction on the west side. I'm not real familiar with that area. The top
on the east side,
on the west
right
side, northwest. Yeah, right there.
Right here.
What type of mineral is that? I'm not familiar with that extraction.
I can contribute to that. That's for building materials. It's for sand and gravel and ready mix.
That's right.
And
okay.
my thought on that is, why would we want to reduce that area? What are the projected what do you call it, finish when they're finished with the mining in that particular area? How far out do they have?
That's a question. City staff, can you?
Yeah, so I'll let
Megan,
she might be able to provide a little bit more clarity on that. That's a little bit complicated because we have 8 operators. I will say that we reduced the area only within Lawa property. So it's not something that's within the city limits technically. Everything stays the same within the city. And we are not aware, and Megan, feel free to correct me if I misstate something, of operations currently taking place within the area that was removed.
If they have to move out to further areas to mine, to bring in the materials to build, it's just going to run up the cost of building too. So I think that we need to keep mindful of what we have here, a resource that we have to help builders keep things affordable.
Yeah, as Carlene mentioned, within the city limit, we haven't reduced any areas. The area that was removed was what was, if you can see my cursor, in this area, which is in Lawa land. And I can switch back to, let me switch back to the current general plan map so you can see what that looks like.
Ah, okay.
So those areas are essentially unchanged. And what's changed is right in here.
Right, that makes sense, bringing it off the airport property. Okay, thank you.
Other questions, comments? Okay, Melissa, do you want to run the poll?
Yeah, before I do that, we did just get a question in from Mentimeter, and the question asks, is there a development timeline for each land use?
That's a very good question, and the short answer is no. The general plan is a long-term is a long-term planning document, and it is required by state law to designate a land use on every single property within the planning area. But when any property might actually develop is not something that the general plan can require. So it'll depend on the individual property owners. Now, as a part of the general plan work, we do look at what the overall anticipated growth is or should be within the time horizon, which is 2045, so 25 years. But that is not site specific. That's overall within the city, what we think is the market demand for housing and jobs, and then those would obviously locate in any of the areas that are designated for those particular land uses. Okay. Melissa, do you want to run the poll?
Yeah. So let's see here. I'm going to launch our first poll question now, which asks, overall, do you agree with the preferred land use alternative? This should be up on your screen in a moment. And if you would select your response, the options are strongly agree, agree, neutral, disagree, or strongly disagree. And again, this is available for folks watching on YouTube through the link in the YouTube description. All right, I think we have everyone. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll and share results. 73% of folks responded with agree, 1% strongly agree, 1% neutral, and 1% disagree.
Do folks
Is that
want
9%
to
or 1%? Sorry.
It's 9%.
Oh, I'm sorry. One respondent.
Actually.
Yeah, that was my mistake. This text is a little small. Thank you for catching that. So one respondent or 9% for the other three options, which are strongly agree, neutral, and disagree. Thanks, Aurora.
Do any of the members want to share why they selected the option they did? And if there are any changes or comments that we should consider as we move through this process with the community and then go to the Planning Commission and Council.
Yeah.
So,
hello, this is Jason. Yeah, I just think there should be more village centers, like across from Dry Town Water Park. There should have been a village center there, a few other places. And I think that what I disliked about the general plan is that it just, on specific plan areas, it was just one big block. It wouldn't show the zoning in those specific areas on the general plan map. So I would like to see on this, the new map, that specific areas actually show the zoning. And actually that this general plan kind of takes in those zoned areas with these new designations of residential and mixed use and commercial. And you could just draw a line saying it's a specific area, specific plan, but it should show the zoning and everything like that. That was it.
Thank you, Jason. We'll discuss this with the city because the citywide zoning map is a separate zoning is, as you know, is different than the land use map. So we would want to keep those separate. And we'll see, we'll have a discussion with city staff how best to represent that, but the designation for all these specific plans, since they are all very different, is a general specific plan designation. And what that allows you to do is keep that flexibility in, but I understand your point of being able to see what's actually planned in these huge areas, which are just designated specific plans. So we'll discuss
it doesn't allow you to
how
look at
to
the big
present that.
picture of the city, really, you know. And
Sure.
also, I
Yeah.
still believe that there should be a medical a center on the east side, not on S, but it should be on Palmdale Boulevard near 40th and 47th. That's all.
Yeah, I actually agree with Jason about the hospital or medical facilities. I think we talked about it quite a bit in the early beginning stages of this. And I don't really see it on the map that we're addressing the needs, not only for today, but for the future in regards to medical. Having one large zone, if you live on the east side, I know we don't want to talk about areas, or the far west side or whatever, you have a difficult time getting to Palmdale Regional Medical Center in emergency. I think we definitely need to address the needs for the entire city in regards to that. So I definitely agree with Jason on that part of it.
Yeah, we do have some close-up maps for the health and wellness districts on the east and west sides later. There is a size difference, but I'll get to that in a few moments. But
and then Simran, during that time, if you can kind of explain, briefly when we get to those close-ups, perhaps what the zoning, once we get to that phase after the general plan is adopted, what zoning allows within, for instance, the regional commercial site that Jason was kind of talking about for medical flexibility. So just because it's not designated as the general plan land use of health and wellness doesn't preclude medical facilities from being in other zone designations once we enter into that. So just keep that in mind. While it is a little bit confusing at this point to see health and wellness, and we think that that's the only place something's going to go, there are opportunities in other higher density areas citywide for those facilities to take place. And then I just wanted to kind of talk really quickly to the specific plan comment. So one of the things after hearing your guys' feedback, community's feedback, Planning Commission, City Council, is we actually looked at each of those specific plans to see which ones really were kind of out of date, and we wanted to incorporate some new general plan designations for those. A lot of the ones that you're seeing are either actively that are continued to have that large swath of specific plan being designated, or either actively being worked on by a developer to update it, or are mostly built out. So I know, or are part of a specific plan that was just adopted by our city council in December. So just keep that in mind. Really great conversation. I just wanted to provide a little bit of clarity to the group on those things.
Thank you, Carlene.
Yeah, but like on Rancho Vista, that specific plan's like 30 years old. But you're right on the like the Ritter Ranch and City Ranch projects. But on and Joshua Ranch, we could actually do that as part of this general plan, I think. But
what's great about those specific plans is they're either actively under construction or they're mostly built out.
So Jason, to your point, changing how they are represented on a map may help illustrate what's there, but it wouldn't change what could be there. So something to keep in mind. I think we can talk about how else to represent those areas. I think the existing land use map helps present that information. But certainly for these presentations, we can bring in another layer of information that might be helpful. Pat, you look like you had a comment or question. No? Okay, that's fine. Okay, are there any others before we move on to the next item?
I'll just mention that through folks that are watching online, we have 2 responses from that same poll question asking overall, do you agree with the preferred land use alternative? We have 1 response which says strongly agree and 1 response which says neutral.
Thank you, Melissa. We wanted to get a little bit into a little more detail on some of the elements of the preferred land use alternative, and I'll start with the village centers. As I noted earlier, village centers are intended to create a place for residents in the surrounding neighborhood to go to for their daily needs. These also may have residential uses, senior housing possibly, in a vertical or horizontal mixed-use format. They can also have other areas for public services, plazas, courtyards that are accessible to the public, and they're also, in most cases, near schools and are connected to the adjoining neighborhoods with pedestrian and bicycle facilities. These centers are also smaller and more walkable than other commercial centers like the AV Mall, for example. So this example here, if you can see on the map here, it's all surrounded by green. It is on the corner of Rancho Vista Road and Town Center. It is sited within a specific plan, but this site on the corner is currently vacant. So we took the opportunity to look at what this center might develop as, and the site plan shows how it could be possibly designed. It contains both standalone residential uses, which are in the back here, which are like walk-ups. An example of that is shown in this photograph here. Townhomes, which are these walk-ups, it's an alley-loaded development. We have mixed-use format along Town Center, which has, again, active retail uses on the ground floor and residential above. And then additional neighborhood residential, commercial type uses along Rancho Vista Boulevard. It also includes a few of these plaza courtyards, which these images on the screen show what those areas could be. So if you can imagine, if you live in the area around here, you could walk here, get a cup of coffee, do your grocery shopping, and be able to just spend time in a nice setting. Or if you actually lived here, again, it would make all of those uses that much more accessible. Any questions on this before we move on?
I did. I had one for Carlene, actually, and it's about that section you just showed on Town Center and Rancho Vista Boulevard. That's currently zoned commercial. Is that correct, Carlene? All of that area?
It's actually under a specific plan.
Right,
That's a
but
specific plan?
yeah, it's a specific plan, and off the top of my head, I'm not sure what the zoning is, but Megan might be able to speak to that in terms of what is part of the specific plan. If not, we can provide you that information at a later time.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking is the developer that owns those parcels. It was originally, he was looking at commercial. So, so Megan, do you have any updates on that area?
So the northern portion above Town Center is commercial. The southern below Town Center, other side of the Rancho Vista, yes, that is commercial. But a specific plan amendment is in the works to possibly do a residential overlay in that area. And then across the street, across Rancho Vista to the south is commercial as well.
Okay, thank you, Megan.
Sure. And currently there's actually an assisted living facility that's being constructed right there.
Okay, great. Oh, awesome. Thank you.
which would make Village Center in a location such as this also appropriate. And to Carlene's point earlier, so right now the zoning may be different than what the concept of the Village Center is, but once the general plan is adopted and the city is updating the zoning to be consistent with the general plan, at that point an appropriate zoning designation for these properties would be also approved.
Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
I think that
Yes,
I'm really familiar with that area, and I know just east of that area, they tried to build some apartments, I would say maybe 10, 15 years ago. And they got a lot.
2002, I was very involved in that, so yeah.
Okay, so I remember the blowback on that.
Yes.
And I know that if you build anything with apartments in that particular area, you're going to get a lot of blowback.
You are going to get major blowback, I can guarantee it.
Yeah, and you're already getting it.
Yeah.
And that's the grocery store across the street from the mall, and because of that land use designation for apartments as well as townhomes. But I can't imagine if you continue to go west with that particular model, you're probably going to have difficulty having a lot of people that will like that particular idea.
Okay. Again, the example we are showing is we picked one example of all these village centers as to what they might look like. This village center may develop as not having housing. Again, that's something that will depend on what the final zoning designation is. But the goal is to have these type of areas which allow for a mix of housing densities. So if I can take a step back and talk about the vision themes that were identified, it was to create opportunities for different types of housing at all different scales and densities. There's a large amount of just the standalone single family designation in the city. And one of the goals of the general plan is to create these additional locations for these middle housing types, which is, walk-ups or courtyards or row houses, which are more affordable. And by that, I don't mean low income, but just affordable to the residents of Palmdale, and to give options for those who don't want a standard 7,000 square foot lot with a large yard to maintain.
And just to piggyback on Simran's beautiful explanation, this could have easily just said, and it's great feedback because I know this community has a very strong reaction to the word apartment or rental. So it could have easily just said 2 to 3 story unit, because the developer is going to work through their business model to see if it's going to be for sale or if it's going to be for rent. So this is just one of the options. This very well could be for sale. And this is just this is Ramey and Associates just throwing a site plan on a potential location to just give an example. Oh, goodness gracious. Sorry. Our lights will go back on in a second.
Oh my goodness.
They'll go back on. I'm sorry. Of course I'm talking. Anyway, take it away, Simran.
Okay. Other questions?
Yeah, this is Jason. I just want to give a little bit of feedback about that area, Rancho Vista. It'd been great if there was, a hotel there on that corner, because when you ask people to come to visit you and stuff like that, and then maybe you'd want to take them to go golfing, down there at Cascades and stuff like that. I always thought Town Center Drive should have gone all the way up to the Aqueduct and a hotel up there on the hill to overlook all of Rancho Vista and put some haciendas and stuff like that to really make it a higher class area. But also what these areas need that no one's really ever talked about is storage units and places where you can park your RV and boats and wave runners and stuff, because you're not allowed to park them in front of your garage, and there's no place to park them on the side of your house because there's no, it's not wide enough. The lots aren't wide enough. So what these areas really need is some storage places that are close by, where you don't have to drive, 4 miles to go to your storage unit to go look at your RV, but a convenient place where you could just go right down the street and everything's right there. So I think we need to start putting more, if we're going to have higher density, we need to start putting more storage unit areas where they're close by. That's it.
Thank you, Jason.
Jason,
Let's
are you
see.
talking about, can I clarify, are you talking about putting hotels and storage facilities? Are you talking about putting in the residential area of Rancho Vista?
Sorry, I'm gonna interject. This is a great conversation. I don't want to stifle people. I just want to make sure that we're really keeping in mind, this feels very specific, and maybe if, we can go back to the larger picture. This is a great conversation. I'm so excited that everyone has, thoughts and input, but just keep in mind, I think maybe we got bogged down by an example. So it's great feedback and good learning for us.
Yeah, and let's move on to, actually, we have a poll question for you, but Debbie, just briefly, the intent of these village centers is not to include self-storage facilities or hotels. These are meant to be at a smaller scale, at a neighborhood scale type uses.
Yeah, that's what I thought, Simran. I just wanted some clarification. 'Cause I know Jason was just putting stuff out there, which is what we do. So, so I get it. Thank you.
Sure. Melissa, are there any questions on or comments on YouTube?
Yes, I have 2 new comments that I'll share now. This is asking, are there any labor standards associated with this plan when it comes to construction of these developments, such as local hire and prevailing wages?
Oh, good question.
And the second question asks, are there bike paths or parks planned, and does that include desert landscaping with environmental concerns?
Oh, another good question.
Both very good questions. To take the last one first, yes, we will have a map which shows bike lanes and bike paths and trails, and we are working with the appropriate city departments to develop those maps, and we'll be bringing that back to the GPAC at a future meeting. And with regard to the previous question about construction, the most construction in the city today is privately funded, and those developers or builders are not bound to all labor has to be paid to the local prevailing wage, the state, the minimum wage. It may not be prevailing wage, but certainly minimum wage. And the prevailing wage requirement as it relates to using union labor, that's a policy discussion for city councils to have, but that's a really good question. And I'm sure we'll have additional discussions about that at future meetings. You want to run the poll on this, Melissa?
Yes. Okay, we're launching our next poll, which is in regards to the village centers. It's asking first, do you agree with the location of the village centers? And then once you respond to that one, your options are strongly agree, agree, neutral, disagree, and strongly disagree. There's actually a second question in this same poll if you scroll down, and that one is kind of bigger picture. It asks if you agree with the types of uses in the village centers that Simran described. And again, your options are strongly agree, agree, neutral, disagree, and strongly disagree.
Okay. And with regard to the first question, there are, as we noted, multiple locations across the city. So, and that's what the question is asking, if you generally agree with how these village centers are located on both the west side and the east side of Palmdale. Okay, I think we have everyone, Melissa.
I think so. I will go ahead and end the poll and share the results. So you should see on your screen now, majority of folks, 45% in response to the first question, do you agree with the locations of village centers, responded with agree. 18% said neutral, 27% said disagree, and 9% said strongly disagree. Then moving on to the second question in this poll, asking about the types of uses in village centers. We have 36% responded strongly agree, 36% responded agree, 9% neutral, 18% disagree, and no one said strongly disagree.
Thank you, Melissa. Anyone want to share any thoughts on village centers before we move on? Any additional thoughts?
I'll share. It was the concept in my mind that we needed to develop the east side of town between 25th Street East and 40th Street East, between Avenue P and Avenue S, where we have concentrations of homes, but we have open space, which could be which would really could utilize that concept more strongly than putting it on the west side. And I have to agree with Debbie and Pat. That's like a no-go zone. No one over there is going to be receptive to that. The Sprouts development, the development where Sprouts is going in, adjacent to the mall, was already hair-raising. Where we need to develop on those types of facilities is on the east side, between 25th Street, 30th Street East, and 40th Street East. And once again, between Avenue P and Avenue S, because that's a concentration where people have to leave their environment to go either to 47th Street or over to the mall in which to do business. In Palmdale Boulevard, I realize has some businesses on it, but it makes for better sense for people to be able to walk to where they want to go. And the only places that have that right now, and it's not really overly advantageous, is like 10th Street East and 5th Street East, where there's a small amount of shopping center on Palmdale Boulevard that reaches out, because we don't have that much development there.
Yeah, thank you, Juan. One thing I'd like to clarify is that, we use this one example and it happened to be in the location it was. And I know I can see Carlene laughing because maybe that wasn't the best choice. But one of the things we heard from council was that they wanted to make sure that the general plan looks at both sides of or all of Palmdale. And some of the examples we've been looking at have been focused on the east side. So we wanted to make sure that we showed an example on the west side as well. There are village centers proposed all across the city, not just the west side. They're just easier to see on the map on the west side because the surrounding colors are all uniform. But there are what we will do for our next meeting, and also for the community meeting coming up, we'll have a map that just shows all the village centers so that it's those are easier to understand when you're looking at these maps on your screen.
I have a comment.
So on the east side, there are multiple village centers that are proposed. Yes, Teresa.
I have a comment. I think that what you just said is a good thought, that this is the village centers need to be thoughtfully located. Uh, uh, so it's not just something we say, oh, let's just throw it over here because there's an empty spot, or just throw it over there. I don't think that that's something that we just should throw around. I think there needs to be a lot more thoughtful consideration on the locations of those village centers, because I don't necessarily agree with, oh, let's just put it on the east side because there's an empty lot over there. I don't agree with that.
Sorry if I can
Right.
say something. I totally understand both sides of this issue, but I have to agree with Juan. And the reason why is not just because I know that we're supposed to look at the city as a whole, but we're also trying to build an equitable city. And I think in that aspect, Juan has a point that there is a need for more of that type of development in that particular area.
And like I said, I think it needs more thoughtful consideration within what surrounds that area.
I agree with both Teresa and Aurora. My son lives over in that area where Juan is talking about, and it is really disjointed and does kind of need some loving care to make it a little bit more accessible. So I totally agree with you guys.
You know,
Thank
that's what when I first heard of a village center, this was 20 years ago, and they were talking about when they were planning on building Dry Town and putting a village center across from Dry Town, because there's already one corner that's zoned commercial, and then you got the school there. But wouldn't it be great to take that big, ugly flood control basin, put a jogging trail around it with some exercise stations, and then across the street you have some nice mixed use, and then you have some nice little restaurants and little Sprouts right there on the corner. I mean, if you want to really build something nice for the east side, that's a good idea. Also, 47th and Pear Blossom Highway would be great for a little village center too.
Yeah. Thank you, Jason. And, you know, a couple of points to make. Teresa, I wanted to reiterate that one, that the locations that are on these maps were thoughtfully determined. They weren't, you know, essentially thrown on the map just because there was some vacant property there. We looked at these, the goal is to try and create areas within single family or near single family neighborhoods where folks can walk to and have these type of uses available, so they are more accessible, and they create a community of village type community. So for that reason, they have to be distributed across the city. There are multiple locations on the east side and several on the west side. And on the east side, we also have Palmdale Boulevard, which has a lot of the neighborhood type commercial uses already on it. So because of that, there are not as many that show up clearly on the maps. But to your point, I think we do need to bring back another map which shows just the locations of these village centers, so you can so that it's more it's easier to understand. Yes, Melissa.
Sorry, what was that?
No, sorry, I thought you were going to say, you were saying something.
Nope.
No, okay.
I can mention we've had a few more folks responding on the polls online, which is great. We have, for the first poll question about preferred land use alternative, we're now split with one response for strongly agree all the way down to disagree. For the location of the village centers, we have 4 responses evenly split between agree down to strongly disagree. And the mix of uses in village centers, we have 1 strongly agree, 1 neutral, and 2 disagree.
I have a thought, a question. Why are we laying something out in a specific plan area that's already pretty much built out. I mean, they've got the right to build multifamily residential at the 2 locations in Rancho Vista. Are we trying to encourage somebody to come along and do mixed use in those locations?
If the goal is to create areas for folks who live in that Rancho Vista area to have places that people can walk to for their daily goods and services, then the answer is yes. If the desire is to not have those type of uses, then of course the answer would be no. I wonder if we should have a meeting specifically focused on the locations of these village centers, because these can these are kind of overlays that get applied on top of the general land use designation. So the circles get inserted in places where you would see these.
The landowners in those 2 locations in Rancho Vista have their entitlements. They can build apartments if they want to. I mean, but I guess
That's right.
what I'm seeing here is that we're encouraging them to do something that's a little more innovative and up to date and more conducive to the community.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on to the 2 health and wellness districts. The 2 which are on the overall map. One is on the east side around the existing Palmdale Regional Medical Center, and then the second is on Avenue S and 45th, near 45th Street and around the Kaiser Permanente facility. And these are shown in the dark blue on your screen, this being the one on near Palmdale Regional Medical Center and this around Kaiser. The size of these 2, in case anyone's interested, the Kaiser one, the one here is about close to 20 acres, and the one up here, because of the existing facility being so large, is about 180 acres. Both these districts are intended to encourage supportive medical uses to build on what's already there. So in the case of the Regional Medical Center, build on additional medical offices, there's synergy between those type of uses. You would also could see additional medical facilities, and the desire is to create a campus-like environment where these facilities could be located. This designation would also allow supportive retail and things like hotels, because often near medical centers you have extended stay hotels, so that family members who are visiting a patient or in the hospital have a place close by to stay. You could also have some laboratories or R&D type facilities that could be located within these locations.
How many acres did you say the one on Avenue S and 45th? How many acres is that?
It's about 20 acres. And I'll also note that in the color next to it, which is shown in this dark maroon, is the regional commercial designation, which also allows some of the types of uses that Jason was talking about. It allows office uses, it can, including some medical, it can also have hotels, etc., for a similar use. So just the fact that a smaller area is designated the health and wellness district doesn't preclude those type of uses to be located elsewhere in the either nearby or elsewhere in the city.
I had a question.
Mm-hmm.
Antelope Valley has a south campus on Palmdale Boulevard, and that's not included with this. Why not?
The Antelope Valley Medical Center?
So the Antelope Valley
Sorry, I wasn't-
Hospital has a, a southern campus building on, it's on Palmdale Boulevard. I don't know if it's at 40th, but it's somewhere around there.
Okay, sure. Mhm.
And I was just curious why that's not included as part of this.
Yes, that's a good question. You know, when we were looking at the various alternatives and developed the preferred alternative, the areas that rose to the top were around the existing Palmdale Regional Medical Center and the Kaiser facility. We do, you know, we can obviously acknowledge that there's the AV medical offices on Palmdale Boulevard, but those are uses that are, there are other medical uses that are also scattered along Palmdale Boulevard, and those can obviously continue in that location. They didn't seem like there's enough land around that location to create this larger campus that we are envisioning in these two locations.
This is Jason. That was a good question. On the west side, the medical center wellness district is 100 acres. On the east side, it's 20 acres. The highest population will be on the east side of Palmdale. That was a good thing that Teresa said. AV Hospital, AV Healthcare District owns property on 40th and Palmdale Boulevard. There's also currently taught with the newly elected people to the hospital board and the council members about putting an ER on the east side on Palmdale Boulevard and 47th. So, and then when I think about wellness districts and health districts, I think about assisted living. I think about senior centers, you know, senior village housing. I think about, you know, where, you know, old folks homes or whatever you want to call it. But that's what I think about when I think about healthcare and wellness districts, is because, you know, seniors use health more than, you know, younger people. So I don't understand why we're putting 20 acres. And I never thought Kaiser should have ever been built there. They should have never zoned that property for Kaiser. That was another land deal that should never have happened. So Kaiser should have been built on 47th Street, not on Avenue S. It was just bad planning. But that's what we want to do. We're trying to put together a good plan that makes common sense. And I think we should have a medical center on Palmdale Boulevard between 40th and 47th on both sides of the boulevard. That's it.
I just had one more comment. I know there's land surrounding that area where the Antelope Valley Southern location is, but I don't know what the land use is for, because I know that the corner, that intersection, there is a lot of land there, but like I said, I don't know what that land use is designated for.
I can shed a little bit of light on what's going on with why Kaiser was located on Avenue S. And that's because that's where the doctors want it. They want to have easy, quicker access. They don't want to, 1 or 2 minutes is actually, I mean, they're picky. And that's why Kaiser is located on Avenue S, and that's why Palmdale Hospital is located where it's at. There were a lot of other sites, but getting a bunch of doctors to agree on getting to easily, you know, to the hospital was not an easy task. So it's the doctors dictate pretty much on where they'll drive to.
Yeah, to add on to what Pat said, you know, the Kaiser facility is built and it is there, and there's a fair amount of land around it, and there's opportunity around it to expand it in a efficient manner. And that was part of the rationale for locating the health and wellness district in that location. As you can see on the map, it's surrounded by residential uses on most sides, including some areas with some higher density uses which are good locations for some of the supportive residential uses, Jason, that you were talking about. So all these uses don't have to be on the same piece of property. They can be in the adjacent land use designations as well.
Yeah, but
And the
all
fact
those
that there's a
properties-
large,
all those properties in the dark purple, it's already built. It's a Walmart, it's a Lowe's, it's a gas station, it's a Stater Brothers, it's a In Shape. It's already built. There's no vacant land over there. There's all the new Aldi's is going to go on the vacant land. So there's just not enough land there for what I picture as a wellness district. Like I say, it should be a whole bunch of assisted living places and village, active senior places. I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me. But maybe, I don't know, you got 100 acres on the west side and you got 20 acres and 10 acres is already developed with Kaiser. It doesn't make sense to me.
We'll look more carefully at this area to see if there are other possibilities for expansion. It sounds like, from what I'm hearing from most of you, that there is a desire to see this district be a bit larger than what's being shown. Am I correct in that?
That's correct.
Okay. So we will look at that. The next slide shows a site plan. Again, this is just an example. This is not how it would actually develop. This is our study we did on the site adjacent to the regional medical center about how that could develop. You could have medical offices, research facilities, open space, plaza space in a more of a walkable campus environment. And it could also include locations for vocational training that's medically related. And the photo examples on the screen show medical offices, outdoor gathering places, other supportive medical facilities that are all connected together to create a cohesive campus.
This picture just kind of tells my point. Can you see that building, those pictures that you just put up there being built on Avenue S? I don't see that building being built on Avenue S next to Kaiser. Do any of you guys, the other 9 members?
Well, behind Kaiser, there's vacant land, probably another 10 acres. And then to the west, there's also another 10 acres, 20 acres total vacant land. I think there's, take a look at it and see if that makes sense to expand the district there. I think you could probably make it a 60 acre, maybe a little even more, go all the way behind that In Shape shopping center, all the way to Highway 138.
I got a question. In general, I've never seen a Kaiser medical facility be mixed with another type of entity of wellness. If that makes sense. Typically, Kaiser has their own campus. A medical center has their own campus, but I don't envision them sharing adjacent land with a competitor. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Depends on who owns the land.
That's right.
I get that, but I'm trying to envision every Kaiser facility I've ever been to. It's always Kaiser, and it's a large area. I mean, you think of Lancaster, they have their whole area. They have a couple of different campuses, but it's only Kaiser. It's not, AV hospital or anything else. It's Kaiser. Are they pigeonholed to that area? I mean, I guess I've never seen it. I don't know if anyone has.
Well, we've certainly seen Kaiser co-located in an area with other medical uses. They're not a part of the same campus per se, as in they're not developed at one time by the same entity. You're right on that, Matt, but certainly adjacent properties can have supportive uses which are also medically related. And there can be medical office buildings which serve doctors who are not only at Kaiser, but are also a part of the larger medical system, which is at the PRMC. So it's not necessarily just Kaiser facilities that would expand, but it could be others that could locate next to them. I think there are examples of those around.
I guess another point is if we have Kaiser on the east side, you know, we're kind of, I don't know what the percentage of our community are Kaiser members, but, you know, having the availability to, you know, other carriers, you know, Medicare, Blue Cross, et cetera, you know, on the east side. I think I'm a strong component of, maybe we don't do this in the general plan, like, you know, Carlene said, but, you know, I don't think we're tackling the medical issues that we have in our community with these small two areas, you know.
Right, and as I noted earlier, I think medical uses are allowed, or medical office uses are allowed elsewhere in the city. It's not there would be limited to just these two areas. So the AV hospital location.
By not having a big vision for a health district on the east side, you're making people think that the east side is not really needed health-wise. By having a big visionary plan on the east side, a 100-acre site, you're making the point where the city has a vision of a big health facility to, you know, to take care of the people that live on the east side.
The vision on the west side is building on an existing very large regional medical center that's already there. And, you know, that takes up a good portion of the acreage that's designated for that particular health and wellness district. So, you know, they're not the same size, and the likelihood of another regional medical center's size facility locating on the east side, I believe is may not be realistic. But if it ever does come to fruition, I'm sure those can land use designations can change to accommodate such a use.
And I'll
But
just
what the general
add
plan
to that,
does right
Simran,
now
if I
is.
can. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, another point too, though, is that remember Palmdale East Side serves Lake LA, Little Rock, Pear Blossom, and as those communities grow, they'll need to count on Palmdale building health facilities to serve those areas, because they're never going to build a health village in Little Rock or Lake LA or anything like that. So
yeah,
we have to
Jason, great points. And I want to kind of piggyback on what you said, that this is a citywide plan. And as we've discussed as a team before, located on to the east of the 14, I believe, has been identified as a medical primary care physician shortage. So it's important for us to keep these conversations going. And, you know, like Simran said, I think we're going to go back and kind of reevaluate the size of the medical center on the east side as well, you know, put our thinking hats together. But I wanted to just make sure that, you know, for the greater group, GPAC, as well as the community that's tuning in, that the city as a whole is the priority, and making sure that we have those facilities that attract the doctors that can serve our community is really what's important. Right now, there are, you know, two main centers. It doesn't mean that we can't have some small medical facilities, you know, located in other areas, which our zoning can allow at a future date. So I know it is a little bit confusing in terms of thinking medical center, this is only where it's going to go. That is really not the case. There are going to be opportunities for medical facilities and service type I guess, uses to be located at other locations throughout the city, and having that vision to kind of make sure that we have those larger facilities carved out is important too. So once again, great conversation. I think that we have really good direction and feedback from you all to, incorporate and make sure that we give that feedback to the decision makers.
Thanks, Caroline. We did have a poll for the health and wellness districts as well. Melissa, do you want to start that?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and launch our next poll. This is similar to the last, where there's two integrated in one. The first asks, generally, do you agree with the location of the health and wellness districts? And your options are the same: strongly agree through strongly disagree. And then if you scroll down, there's another question asking, generally, if you agree with the types of uses that are proposed for the health and wellness designation. And for
Somehow
folks watching on YouTube,
my poll disappeared and I didn't vote.
for folks who are watching on YouTube, you can actually click the link in the YouTube description to have access to the same questions. We've already got a few responses in, which is great. We'll wait another minute or two.
Debbie, did you want to just share your answers verbally? Sorry, I don't know if you can close and reopen it, right, Melissa?
Or via the chat.
Or via the chat too, Melissa.
Okay, I can just send her a chat.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and close and share the results. The first question, generally agreeing with the location. Majority, about 50%, agree, 20% are neutral, 20% disagree, and 10% strongly disagree. The next question regarding the types of uses in the health and wellness designation, 10% strongly agree and 90% agree. And then I'll just share, we have 4 responses from folks online, and we have 2 responses with agree with the location, 2 responses are neutral with the location. And then in terms of the types of uses in health and wellness districts, we have 1 respondent who agrees, 1 disagrees, and 2 are neutral.
Thank you, Melissa. Besides looking at the possibility of expanding the health and wellness district around the Kaiser facility, one other aspect that we can explore is to be more explicit in allowing that assisted living, senior housing type of uses in this area, in these districts. Are there any thoughts on adding those type of uses to the types of, in addition to what's already being listed as being permitted?
Just to clarify, you're talking about what's on Avenue S and the one we currently have on Palmdale Boulevard?
I'm talking about the two wellness, health and wellness districts as indicated. Right now, we don't explicitly state that senior housing or assisted living is permitted in those districts. My question to you all is, should we be allowing those type of uses in the 2 health and wellness districts?
I think so. That makes sense. I mean, we've got the big senior center over by the Palmdale Hospital, and that makes sense to have a senior center near a hospital.
Yeah, those are permitted, but we'll need to just clarify that so that it's crystal clear. Any other thoughts on that? Okay. The last the last example we wanted to look at was for the two education districts, and the education flex land use designation is intended to provide for a mix of different educational type uses, with the primary uses being trade schools, public and private higher education facilities, or a satellite campus, and then, but also allow supportive retail uses, office uses, and housing. And the two locations that have been identified are one around the AV College campus, which is located here at 25th and Palmdale, and this whole vacant site to the south, on the south side of Palmdale. And then the second location adjacent to the Aerospace Academy across 35th Street in this location. The areas, these two total about 106 acres, and they're very similar in size. This north area is about 60 acres, and the one next to aerospace is about 45 acres.
I have a question about why we would put them so far in the city. It seems to me that being closer to a freeway would make a whole lot more sense, because those areas where Palmdale High School is, there's a lot of traffic in that area. It just seems to make more sense to me to have it where it's easily commutable. Sort of like how the doctors feel, about getting to their offices. As a person who has so many degrees right now and all the schools that I've gone to, I like when stuff's easily accessible and I don't have to be driving through the city, and you basically have to drive through the whole city to get to those.
The purpose of locating the educational district in these locations is to build on what's already there. The fact that there's a high school and the Aerospace Academy in these two locations, and there's a lot of synergy that can be found between vocational training, which can be tied and build on both the educational uses. The AV College campus is located, or the college satellite use is located in this location, which also provides that additional existing base to build around. Your point, Debbie, about easy access from the freeway is well taken, except that if you put all the uses along the freeway, then those who live away from the freeway then also have to drive to those locations, which creates other congestion issues in those locations. Having these be on Palmdale Boulevard, which has transit as well, also makes it easier to access. Not everybody has a car easily available to them.
Now, your point about the high school and trade opportunities and stuff, that's a point well taken. Thank you.
I'd like to
Sure.
add, I've said it before. You've got a substantial population on the west side of Palmdale, from 30th all the way out to 70th Street West. And so for somebody to drive from the furthest neighborhoods on the west side to this location, it's about a 11 or 12 mile drive, and part of it's through the city. And it's not an easy drive. It's at least a 30-minute drive or more to get there. So I'm not sure that we're really serving the west side of Palmdale as far as education goes, as the education districts. I think most people just roll on down to AV College, going to Lancaster.
In fact, I think the previous at our previous meeting where we discussed this, that was the consensus that folks that we all came to, that given how proximate the AV College campus in Lancaster is, that would be realistically where folks would who live on the west side would tend to go to. I'll also add that in the health and wellness district campus, especially the one around the regional medical center, there is enough land to include, and I had mentioned this, education, vocational uses tied to medical facilities. There's synergy for those type of uses to locate in that in the health and wellness district in that location as well. So there are opportunities for educational facilities to locate over there, and if those are the right opportunities residents on the west side want, then that would certainly make it easier for them to access.
Yeah, Pat, Jason. Yeah, that was the original vision back in the 80s and 90s, was that the northwest part of Antelope Valley would be served by Lancaster Antelope Valley College, and that there would be a south college, southeast, a college on the southeast side of Antelope Valley to serve the southeast part of Antelope Valley. Now, I'm looking at the Aerospace Academy. I was strongly opposed to that at city council meetings because it was being built on 16 acres. And that's not big enough when you're building a high school. There's no high school in Antelope Valley built on just 16 acres. Then I knew that they were going to add the elementary on top of it. And then the athletic fields, look at it. The athletic fields, they have to build across the street. That's crazy planning. That's crazy zoning. That should have never been allowed. I was 100% right. And even the council members even said I was right afterwards. So now we have this college district I look at. That's not big enough for a college for the Southeast Antelope Valley. Why are we getting the short end of the stick? Where's our athletic fields and stuff like that for our kids? So this, to me, this is like a storefront college campus. Yet we're paying half the bill in the college bond money. You know? Where's the fairness in taxation? It's not fair. There should be 85 acres or 100 acres designated on the east side of Palmdale to serve the southeast Antelope Valley. This plan right here, it's almost like we're getting crackers. And why Lancaster and the west side gets all the money. It's crazy. $450 billion in bond money, and all Palmdale has is they spent $5 million on 60 acres on the San Andreas Fault for a college campus. That's all we got, $5 million. That's all Palmdale got out of $450 million. I strongly disagree with this educational district.
Okay. Thank you, Jason. We'll make a note of your remarks. Other thoughts, questions, comments?
This is Juan. I agree with what Jason's been saying. A lot of this educational stuff has been kind of short-sighted, and Palmdale has been taken advantage of. So if there's another way we can make this happen, and I think Jason's, he has a real valid point. He has been in the forefront of a lot of these things. So Jason, I'm in your corner on this one.
I'm not a city councilman, but
other
I'll tell
thoughts?
Jason you're right.
So, Pat and Juan, let me ask you a follow-up question. Are you saying that we should not have the education district where where those are currently located, near the AV College campus and near the Aerospace Academy, given that those are already built and functioning, and there's land around those to bring in the ancillary supportive education uses?
If you can expand it and make it bigger, I think that would meet what Jason's talking about. but I don't know that there's that room on the boulevard there to do that.
And can I just ask a question? Why does it have to attach to something that's already existing? Why can't we just find a new large location?
The reason to find a new, to attach to something that's existing is that if it is, well, let me back up. The reason to not just go out to a blank slate and start a new campus is that one, you are encouraging folks to drive even further than, because the large expanses of vacant land are further and further east in areas which may not have the infrastructure that's needed for those facilities to actually function. That's one. Secondly, because we have existing uses in a certain area and a lot of educational uses benefit from being in a more urbanized or busy location, because there are all these other types of uses that are close by. I'm sorry, I need to just.
I want to make real quick. That property south of Palmdale Boulevard was bought by Palmdale School District to relocate their new school district headquarters and their bus depot, because it's built. Their old one or their current one is built on Avenue P8, which is where the new freeway is supposed to go. So the Palmdale School District bought this land from Walmart, because Walmart was going to plan on building there. And so they bought that property just, I think, 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, from Walmart. And this is where Palmdale School District is going to relocate. So this vacant land is already spoken for. So, and you know, A&PM, the Arco gas stations aren't going to give up their corner. This just isn't enough property. You know what I'm saying? It's not enough. What are you going to do? The parking lot at Antelope Valley College is just as big as the campus. Where's the parking going to be for the students? Why are we looking so? I want something big and beautiful. This is, this isn't LA. This is Palmdale, where we have all these big pieces of property. Let's do it right. Let's build something that we're all proud of. That, I just think that why are we, this is not going to be enough. The biggest population is going to be on the east side of Antelope Valley. Why are we putting it in a store front campus? Where's the athletic fields? Most of these kids get grants from being in baseball and athletics in college, in junior college, to go on to a university.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know I'm taking a lot of your time, but I'm passionate on this, and I know this is wrong, what's happening.
Yeah, and we hear you, and I mean, it sounds like there's quite a few people who have the same thoughts. And like you said, this isn't the first time that we've heard this. We also incorporated not only your feedback, but the public outreach and planning commission and city council. So once again, kind of the same with medical districts. I think we need to go back and kind of look at this again and see where we can identify some areas within the city that this makes sense, that we're not just potentially kind of throwing it out there just because there's a vacant piece of land. So we hear you and love the passion. I think this is great. And, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Jason, because like I said, you're not the only one that said that. So we hear all of you and thank you for the input.
This has been an ongoing battle over the years, so it's not going to get solved here tonight.
I do have a question.
Yeah. Yes, Matt.
So I do have a question. So, I mean, let's say if we take it for what it's worth. I mean, I'm in disagreement. I think we need it. I agree with Jason. We need more education out here. But my question is, how do I phrase this? I don't see it being enticing to live next to this small campus, to grow apartments with mixed use. And I don't see the enticement. These are people that are commuters, people that have full-time jobs. They already live in the valley. I just don't see the enticement it doesn't make sense. You have housing, this type of housing next to AV College or a university or such, that makes sense. But I'm not following the logic in regards to building mixed use around this.
So mixed use is being proposed along Palmdale Boulevard. But if you look at the map here with the light blue, which is the high school campus, and then the area in the darker blue, which is the area designated for one of the education districts, overall that together with potential joint use of fields and facilities is an efficient way of building on what's already there. To go back to what Teresa, you were asking earlier, that was the reason why we had originally identified this location as one of the education district locations, because of those, the proximal uses and the possibility of sharing facilities. You know, a new campus, a brand new campus, is in the multitude of billions of dollars, which again, I think is something to aspire for, but a location such as this leverages resources that have already been spent to create a similar environment. It may not be the brand new from scratch campus like a University of Merced campus, but I think it can be a very attractive and easily accessible campus, which is in a more urban setting. Having said that, we will go back and look at other locations as well. Certainly, we can hear all your passion loud and clear. I think with that, we have one last poll for you all, and then I think that's actually the end of our time here today. So, Melissa, do you want to run the last poll?
I'm launching our education district polls, similar to the last two. The first one asks, do you agree generally with the locations of the education districts? Responses strongly agree through strongly disagree. And then if you continue down on this box, you'll see the second question, which is generally, do you agree with the types of uses proposed in the education flex designation? And your options are strongly agree through strongly disagree. And while we're waiting for folks to finish their responses, we have gotten a few responses from folks online. Regarding the location of education districts, we have one respondent who strongly agrees and 3 who are neutral. And in terms of the types of uses, the same breakdown, 1 strongly agrees and 3 are neutral. So with that, I'm going to close our poll and share the results. So the first question asking about the location of the education district, majority say disagree, 45%. We have 27% who agree, 9% are neutral, and 18% strongly disagree. Moving on to the types of uses, we have 82% who agree, 9% are neutral, and 9% disagree.
Thank you, Melissa. So we will clearly, given the response here, we'll look at, go back and look at the location of the education district, and at our next meeting, we will bring back some additional ideas or things for you to consider. With that, Melissa, were there any official public comments that were submitted that you'd like to share?
So far we have 2. And I'll share these quickly. One is asking if bike paths, parks with desert landscape will be required for environmental concern. And the other question mentions the need to inform homeowners in Palmdale who pay property taxes about the kinds of developments that would occur, so they know what's going on for city growth.
With regard to that, that's actually a good segue into the next steps, which is that right now as of today, we have launched the Preferred Alternative Community Survey. It's live on our website, which is www.palmdale2045.org. I encourage everyone who's watching to take the survey, as well as help spread the word out to their friends, community members, neighbors, anyone and everyone to participate and provide their feedback. We will also be hosting an online workshop on February 4th, which is a Thursday at 5 o'clock. Information about that is also on the project website. Again, we encourage everyone to join, and you all, the GPAC members, if you, it would be great if you could join so you can directly hear the kind of feedback we are receiving from the community as well. And if you could all also be ambassadors of this project to help get the word out, that would be very helpful. Let's see, our next GPAC meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, February 24th, which is in about 6 to 7 weeks. We'll be bringing back transportation recommendations, and we will also circle back on some of the feedback we received from you today. So those will be the agenda items for that meeting. Once the survey closes in middle of February, we'll be gathering all those results, analyzing them, and we'll take the summary of the feedback we have received from you all, the public, and also through focus groups that are being planned in early February to the Planning Commission and City Council. And those are planned for middle of the March meetings, the regularly scheduled meetings for the Planning Commission and Council. I believe the dates are March 10th for the Planning Commission and March 15th for the City Council. So again, I encourage you all to attend those meetings as well. I don't know, Carlene, if you have any other last words, but I think we've gone over a little bit on our time, but appreciate everyone participating today, and always appreciate all the feedback we get. Go ahead, Carlene. Sorry.
No, it's great. It's difficult. Thank you for navigating that. And then just to kind of reiterate what Simran said, and I know I kind of moved us along a couple of times, but I really value all of your time, and I know this is a big commitment, and to be focused and provide such insightful and passionate and useful feedback is just, it's really wonderful. We're really lucky to have such an involved GPAC. So thank you. Please keep it up, and we'll continue to push you to keep you on time to respect all of your time as well. And thank you anybody who viewed in on the YouTube channel. It's been great, and we look forward to everyone taking the survey and hearing more about your feedback and seeing all of the people that attend the workshop. And just a big thank you, and it's so wonderful to see all of your faces. So we'll see you again in a little bit.
And thank you, Melissa, for the PDF that you sent. That was really helpful. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you, guys. And if you guys can go by and look at the villages on Rancho Vista Boulevard near the senior facility and Antelope Valley Country Club, I think it's important for all the GPAC members to go look at that, because that's the kind of mixed-use housing that we're talking about as the future. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, everyone. For those on YouTube, materials from the meeting are available on the project website, and a recording of this meeting will be up on the YouTube channel again if anyone wants to go back and look at it again, or ask their friends, neighbors to go learn more about this project. And please, please, please invite folks to attend the community meeting on February 4th, and also to participate on the survey, which is live right now. Thank you again, and good to see you all, and good night.
Good
Night.
night.